In this video, guys, I want to give you my top 10 tips for doing a valve adjustment on a Honda K-Series engine. Also, in addition, stick around to the end of the video for some extra tips. First, you need to watch lots of videos. It goes without saying that there's lots of great videos out there by Eric the Car Guy, Alex Kaplitsky, Clint Searcy. Watch tons of videos. Get really comfortable with the basic process. But on top of that, here are my top 10 tips. Oil changes, number one, oil changes make a huge difference in how much you can expect to have to adjust your valves. If you've been using really high quality oil, like a Castrol Edge, full synthetic, Pennzoil Ultra Platinum, every 5,000 miles, 7,500 miles, however you drive the car, you can expect that there's not going to be that much valve wear on a K-Series engine. So just keep that in mind. Number two, realize that there's probably not going to be a lot of adjustment to be made on the intake side. It's going to be on the exhaust side, on that back side of the engine, that you're going to have to most likely make the adjustments. And this is just the way the K-Series engines tend to wear. Number three, you probably don't need that Honda tool, like the valve adjustment tool or any valve adjustment tool. You know, I just use the 10 millimeter offset wrench. Now this one does say Honda on it, but you don't have to have that. If you just have any high quality 10 millimeter offset wrench, you're probably going to be fine. Number four, and this is really important, note the screw position before you crack open the nut with the socket. So in the picture I'm going to put up for you, you can see I'm doing the adjustment. But prior to cracking that nut loose, like with a socket, I made sure I familiarized myself with the orientation of the screw. Was it like this? Was it like that? Was it like this? Because remember, you're only going to turn it, you're only going to loosen it about halfway around, okay? So you really want to pay attention to what you're doing. Number five, make sure you're doing this on a cold engine. I should have said that earlier. Number six, go ahead and remove the spark plugs and use the power steering pump crank to turn the engine to get it to top dead center. And this leads me to number seven. What in the heck is top dead center? I looked at the Eric the Car Guy video, and honestly, I couldn't really make sense of what he was talking about. But if you look at like all the other videos, it's pretty clear. If the lobes are pointing up, that's close to top dead center, and that's going to get you where you need to go. Number eight, use short feeler gauges, okay? Do not use long gauges like Eric the Car Guy is doing. I don't know what the heck he's doing with those long gauges. I would not want to be getting that into a K-Series engine. So use short and make sure they're angled, because unless you can get them underneath, right, and start really feeling for that valve clearance, doesn't do you a lot of good. So make sure you get short angled feeler gauges. Number nine, I would say, if possible, use an OEM valve cover gasket. Like, you know, you can get them for like 12, 14 bucks off HondaPartsNow.com. And in the past, I've used like Felpro gaskets, and Felpro, I don't have a problem with Felpro, but I've had to replace it when it started leaking. And so I just, once I went with the OEM Honda valve cover gasket, I didn't have any more problems. Number 10, use Honda Bond, and use the Honda Bond HT, most likely, at the four corners of the valve cover gasket. That's where it tends to leak. So you're going to want to put a glob on your finger and just push it right into those four corners, okay? You don't need a ton of it, but you need to use probably a little more than Alex Kaplitsky says. Go ahead and use just a little bit more than that. But I would use Honda Bond over like the Felpro RTV silicone, you know, made in China. I just think you're going to have a better experience with the Honda Bond, and it's 15 bucks. Number 11, do not over tighten your valve cover bolts. 8 to 10 foot-pounds is the most you want to put on those things because if you go higher, especially if the engine is warm at all, you will break the studs. And number 12, if you do break the studs, do not beat yourself up. It's not that difficult to install new ones. Ask me how I know. So here's what they look like. And you may want to get a couple of these things for your application before you start the job, just in case you break a stud off. And I'll tell you where they break. They break right there. So they break right there when you're cranking them too tight, and they're kind of weak. And just, hey, look, HondaPartsNow.com, and you can just get a couple of these. Are like $8 or $9 each. Easy to break them off, but easy to replace them. Lastly, my final bonus tip, do not do this job when you need the car later that day. So for example, you park the car in your garage, the following morning you start the job. Do not plan to use the car that day, because if you run into complications, and it's easy to run into complications on these things, you do not want to be in a situation where you're panicking and having to put things back together and you're hurrying, because that's when you're going to make a big mistake, and that's when you can potentially damage the vehicle. So anyway, wishing you guys the best of luck. The valve cover jobs on Hondas, they're not that hard to do, but you really need to come with a lot of research done ahead of time, know exactly what you want to do, follow lots of people's tips and techniques, including mine, and I think you're going to have a good experience. Look forward to talking to you guys in the next video. Take care.